It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, caught, touchdown, they did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press second hour here with Jason Walker. And well, it'll be just me for pretty much the entire hour. We have to let Eric Franson head off to do important things. He's got to go sneak into Utah State football practice. He's going to go talk to a couple of Utah State players. He's not sneaking in. Maybe I have to qualify that in case somebody thinks he's actually doing that. He's heading up there by invitation, or at least by request, and them allowing us to go. He'll be talking to Courage Ugo, one of the starting corners for the Aggies, and then Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Week, Tanner Rinker, who went 2 of 2 on field goals and 2 of 2 on PATs for the Aggies. A perfect kicking day for the Aggies kicker. So he'll talk to us. So we'll have that audio for you tomorrow, and then you'll be able to hear from those players who do our Know Your Aggies segment. You'll get to hear from them later this season. Who knows, maybe even later this week. We'll see exactly when they decide those. You can hear those over on KVNU, is where they play those during their pregame show. And obviously it had a lot of fun with finally getting back in the saddle. I know JD and Stockton were super excited to get back and doing their pre and post game show. And of course, we've got Tyler Larson on there with Eric Franson doing the post game show. So a lot of fun. Make sure to check those out for whenever you're following the game, whether you're watching on TV or following it on the radio. Make sure to catch the pre and post game show. I know eventually we're going to be getting those on like streaming. So we're going to get JD and Stockton on video and get all these fun things with these guys. Real quick, we need a roll call. 6860 saying there's no full court press, saying there's something going wrong with the signal. As far as I know, we're on the show. Give us a roll call on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 435-339-0321. As far as I'm aware, we are on the air here in this second hour. We're hoping nothing's going too wrong with the feed. But we've got a lot to talk about. We talked a lot in the first hour with Utah State beating UTEP. Obviously, a lot going right. Yeah. We're hearing stuff on the radio. Eric just texted me. He's already on his way to practice, and he texted me saying everything's working. And then, yeah, a few people saying we've got it. So I unfortunately, I don't know what's gone wrong for at least one of our texters. So, and yeah, thanks for the roll call. We got several coming in here. So as far as I know, things are working. I know it's not uncharacteristic of us to have something go wrong, but hopefully we can get things figured out. But if for whatever reason things go wrong, we've got our podcast feed, and that's usually coming out smoothly. We did have some texts. I think one of them, I want to make sure one of them didn't get buried. 7994 saying, I'm late listening to the show today. Sorry. On Friday, I gave a very pessimistic score prediction. Fortunately, I was very wrong. The Aggies did mostly the opposite of what I predicted. As a result, the score was almost exactly the opposite what I predicted. The UTEP 24, USU 10 was his prediction. And then saying, great job, Aggies. And yeah, some of my specific, although I had a dang near perfect score prediction, there were some things that were actually the opposite. I thought the offense would start out slow, finish strong. It was the other way around. I thought the run game would make more of an impact than it did. I had a pretty big impact in the first half. I think it was somebody they needed to make big plays, or like the run game would like settle the team in. I'm trying to remember. I had it all written down in my notes, and I think I threw those notes away, and I didn't go back to review exactly what my predictions were. but I thought the run game would stabilize things. And it kind of did. I mean, Miles Davis's 58-yard touchdown did help stabilize things because I think that's when they were down 7-3. Aggies go up 10-7, and they never trailed from that point on. But they ended up making some big plays through the air. Like a lot of their long drives were actually powered more by Bryson Barnes' arm through the air than it was by Miles Davis or Bryson Barnes on the ground. So I was wrong on some of my specifics. But then I can't remember what I predicted for the defense exactly. I hope I predicted the defense would do well because they did do pretty well. And I was kind of in the middle of the road, I think, among all of our guys who submitted predictions. But you can find all of our predictions from the guys at Cash Valley Media Group, like the Saturday morning article that we published where it was me, Eric, JD, Stockton, and Craig Hislop. We all submitted predictions. I did have the best one. Of course, it's hard not to be the best one when you're off by one for both. But Craig was actually really close too. I think he was 31-14 or something like that, which, like, when you first look at it, you think it's off, but like he was only off by like 3 for Utah State and like 2 for UTEP. So he was also pretty darn close. Just slightly more optimistic on both offense and defense. But like we had predictions for Utah State in the 30s, which I think based on what I saw during the game, they should have gotten into the 30s. And then there were some who were predicting the Aggies to hold UTEP to just 10 or so points. But it ended up being a little middle of the road. I think of all the most optimistic and pessimistic predictions, we basically got the middle. The one where Utah State didn't do spectacular, but they didn't do bad. They didn't lose this game, or they didn't, they also didn't have this game be super close in the end. But they also didn't completely take care of business. They should have won this, as I was kind of saying in the first hour, they should have won this 35-16, or really 35-13, or 38-13, or 38-16. Based on the way they were playing in that game, they really should have gotten that, but they didn't, and that's just what happened. With Bronco Mendenhall, as we played that clip in the first hour, thought they were going to be better on third downs. They weren't. We went over, and I went over this again on my Monday cooldown article, which you can find on Cache Valley Daily, where just kind of summarized those 5 drives, and it was penalties, one blown play here, a drop pass there. And if you clean some of that up, suddenly a couple of those drives are going for more yards and possibly points. We'll get to a little bit more of those in a minute. I want to play some clips where we had guys talking about like Anthony Garcia, Miles Davis, Bryson Barnes. We'll actually hear from Jake Eichhorn, one of the offensive linemen, who had himself a pretty solid day, save for 1 or 2 plays. There were sacks given up, and unfortunately Eichhorn was involved in a couple of those. But wanted to go over what happened in the rest of the Mountain West. And I'll have my official power rankings out later today of the Mountain West. I'll try and remember off the top of my head what some of those were. So wanted to go over what happened in the rest of the Mountain West because it was, well, to be honest, it was a little uninspiring. It makes me a little worried. And feel free to text in your thoughts on the text line 435-339-0321. Basically, I don't know if there's a way to basically put this in concisely, or have a way for you guys to text in your thoughts on this, but how you feel the Mountain West is doing after 1 week, on a panic meter scale of 1 to 10, or just thoughts overall. Because there were a lot of teams in the Mountain West that were expected to do better that did not do good. We already went over Boise State, and Boise State fell completely out of the AP poll. They went from ranked 25th to not ranked at all. Not a single person put them on their ballot. They lost all faith of the voters, losing 34-7 to South Florida on the road. Fresno State had a rough opener, losing 31-7 at Kansas, but they did bounce back. They won. They beat Georgia Southern, beat them pretty good, 42-14, which among teams that played FBS schools, that was the largest margin of victory for a Mountain West team. I think there were a couple that had a larger margin overall. Air Force, but they beat Bucknell, an FCS team. And then San Diego State beat Stony Brook 42-0. But again, those were FCS schools that they played. So like overall, the Mountain West, like I was trying to look like, all right, who am I going to put into my top 3 of the Mountain West power rankings? And you think, okay, is Boise State still the best team in the Mountain West? Okay, well, if the best team in the Mountain West is losing to South Florida by 27 points, that's kind of rough. And, I go to UNLV. I was like, UNLV, the team that barely beat Idaho State? And I know I was kind of leading the charge as far as that not being as big a deal as most people made it out to be, but still, it happened. But in the end, I actually put UNLV as my top team in the power rankings. Because I was like, nobody else is there. Like, who's there to take the crown of best team in the Mountain West? And UTEP's the only 2-0 team. They've got 2 wins. Half the Mountain West doesn't even have 1. Like, you look at the standings for college football, and you got UNLV, who's 2-0. You've got 4 teams at 1-0, and it's like a bunch of the teams that were picked toward the bottom of the conference. Wyoming, Utah State, San Diego State. I think Air Force was picked the highest. 2 of those teams played FCS teams. And Utah State beat UTEP by 12 points, and Wyoming beat Akron, who might actually be the worst team in the country. They beat Akron on the road 10-0. And so it's like, what do you do? And then your 1-1 teams. Fresno State, they got blown out by Kansas, but then they blew out Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, who's like a bottom 30 team in the country. So Fresno State has like a +4 point differential. Hawaii, they barely beat an awful Stanford team, and then they got routed by Arizona. So like those are all of your teams that have a win. Is UNLV, Air Force, San Diego State, Utah State, Wyoming, Fresno State, and Hawaii. So that's a rough start. And honestly, I think maybe aside from Boise, as far as relative rough starts, where they have like playoff aspirations, and then they get beat by 27 by not a power conference team. If they'd lost like that against a power conference team, you'd have been able to salvage a little bit more. But in South Florida, that's rough. But San Jose State, that's the one that really seemed to surprise me. And like there, I think in my power rankings, I had them at like 4 or 5. In those rankings, and again, in like the preseason rankings, I had no clue who to put like 5 to 8, or really like 4 to 8. Because like, what's the real difference between a Hawaii and a San Jose in like a Utah State or Wyoming, like, or a Colorado State? Like, what's the real difference? It was kind of hard to rank those. But I think I took San Jose State, and I took them from like 4th to either like 10th or 11th. Because like losing at home to a team in the MAC, and where I thought Walker Egan could be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and he did not look good, threw 2 interceptions. I think he barely completed 50% of his passes. The run game was awful. Like that, San Jose just looked bad. Their defense held down Central Michigan well enough. Held them to 3 points in the second half. But San Jose's offense might just be genuinely awful. They, basically their entire offense boiled down to throw the ball to Danny Scudero, where he had nigh on 200 receiving yards, and that was basically it. It was one of those games where, Walker Egan had 300 yards, but it was the emptiest 300 passing yards that you ever saw. His total QBR was 35. Again, just not contributing to winning. Sure, getting some stats, but 2 interceptions, a really low completion percentage, just not efficient. And then the run game, 3.1 yards per carry. That ain't cutting it. Your leading rusher averaging 4.0 yards per carry. That's not cutting it. San Jose looked bad, and they were bad. And they go from a team that maybe, the thought was maybe they're going to be able to continue or build on, like they've had like 3 straight 7-win seasons. Can they build on that? Can they get an 8th win? Or at the very least, stay at, bowl eligibility? That loss throws that into question. Mind you, it's week 1. You can have a bad week 1. You can recover from it. Don't want to be proclaiming anything about San Jose. But as things stand right now with our 1-game sample size, they're back to being one of the worst teams in the conference. Which is sad because I don't want that to happen to San Jose. Going to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 9315. Saying, say 25% of Mountain West teams did better than I would think, but the rest went down, not up. USU, UNLV, maybe. The rest, I don't know. So the teams that I would say had a good week overall, or at least not bad week. Fresno, Wyoming, I dig on them barely beating an Akron team, but they shut out Akron, beat them on the road. So Wyoming, you get an up. San Diego State, I'll say they were weirdly inefficient for a team that scored 42 points statistically. I need to go actually maybe watch that game because I don't want to make any proclamations about this team where I wasn't watching much of this game because I was busy watching other games that night in the Mountain West. But your main quarterback, Jaden Denegal, goes 13 of 25. So that's like 54%. He had the second worst total QBR of any quarterback in the conference so far this season. The only one worse is Maddox Madsen, actually, of all people. Maddox Madsen has the worst total QBR of any quarterback in the conference. That's a preseason offensive player of the year right there. The run game for San Diego State averaged 4.2 yards per carry. And I think that one's could be held back by maybe late in the game. But Lucky Sutton, their main running back, he averaged 4.3 yards per carry. They did have Christian Washington, who averaged 5.4 yards per carry. So I think maybe they got held back a little bit by some late game inefficiencies in the run game. So I think their run game is probably better than advertised by the box score. But they, as I said, they were weirdly inefficient on offense for a team that scored 42 points. But by golly, did their defense absolutely suffocate Stony Brook. And I guess we talked about this already, but San Diego State, they're another team who had a good first week overall. So that was Wyoming, Fresno, San Diego State. UNLV had an up week. They beat Sam Houston 38-21. And that score is actually deceptively close. It was 31-7 going into the fourth quarter. Sam Houston scored some late touchdowns when the game was already in hand. So UNLV's up there. Utah State. See, like half the teams, I guess, went up. 5 out of 12, close to half. I guess Air Force, they were 49-13. I guess the real thing is just that it seemed like everyone at the top, just or close to the top, did bad. And then a few teams, again, toward the bottom. But like overall, we're painting a picture of like which teams are good. Are any of the teams good? Is Boise State good? UNLV is about the best thing we seem to have going for us based on, again, the sample size we have. I want to wait for more data. But I don't know, it's just kind of iffy right now. Not really convinced about any of these teams. I'm not convinced that any of these teams can be really good. I'm not convinced any of them can be college football playoff. I think a bunch of them can make bowl games. But it's just kind of a really iffy start for a lot of teams in the Mountain West. And, Utah State's among those. Like, there's still a lot of iffy things about Utah State. Mostly about their offense, a little bit about their defense. I kind of want to prove that their defense can have multiple good games. Because, like, if you took last year's Hawaii game, Utah State would have been a great defense. But they were terrible in, like, just about every other game. So I want to see Utah State have some good multiple good defensive performances. And I think Hawaii will be the biggest litmus test of that. So, yeah, the Mountain West just kind of in an iffy spot. We'll see. Again, my summary, my Mountain West watch will come out later today. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll actually talk high school football. We will get back to Utah State because I wanted to play a few clips, especially a couple from Jake Eichhorn about some of his teammates. Their performance, Miles Davis, Bryson Barnes, the ability of the Utah State run game. Talk about that as well. But we're going to start by talking high school football, summarize a lot of these games, some really exciting ones, especially involving Green Canyon. See, I had it right, and then I tried to go to Grand Canyon, the other team joining the Mountain West. So we'll talk about all those high school games coming up next on the Full Court Press.
Cold weather is here, which means you'll be using your gas fireplace again. Let Advanced Fireplace and Stove, the 4-time Best of Northern Utah gold medal winner, help you get it ready for those cold Cache Valley winters. Schedule a service call with one of their service pros today and receive 20% off if you mention this ad. If you're building a new home, Advanced Fireplace and Stove can design and install a Heat and Glow fireplace. From traditional to modern, Heat and Glow has something for every design and every budget. Find out more at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
The Rodeo Day sale is still riding strong. At West Motor Company, we're talking the best prices of the year on every vehicle on the lot, including Ram Heavy Duty, Ford Super Duty, F-150, cars, and SUVs. Right now, save up to $10,000 off Ram Heavy Duty. No gimmicks, no bull, just straight shooting deals. And with every purchase, get free rodeo jackets while supplies last. This is it, the biggest sale of the year. Rodeo Days at West Motor Company, celebrating 80 years in the saddle. It ain't our first rodeo, but it just might be the best one yet.
No matter what the conditions, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle up and off your property. Now is the time to plan to make extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage and moving that old vehicle. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
The patio is open. The chips are endless. Drinks on tap. You know it's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant, gold winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. That's a complete lunch for just $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and massive burrito, just $7.95. The patio, the sun, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6th Weston Center in Logan.
Yeah, military life can have its challenges, but sometimes veteran life brings more. While serving in Iraq, an IED took both my legs, but it didn't take my spirit.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My name is Greg Gadsden, 26-year Army veteran.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories, great and small.
DAV helps veterans like me get all the benefits they've earned, and that can be a life changer.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Today, I'm an entrepreneur, photographer, and public speaker.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won. With the right support, there are no limits.
My victory is just being the best that I can be.
Greg Gadsden, thank you for your service. May your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Interviews, analysis, and a little bit of fun mixed in. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Talking to high school sports. We had a few exciting games over the weekend, a few that were a little trickier. I know on Friday we got to talk about Bear River. Their loss to Box Elder. Unfortunately, not quite having as an exciting start as they would have hoped. They did have the 77-0 win over Cottonwood. But a few games on Friday, there were a few that were not so close. Ridgeline ended up pummeling Brighton. Me and Eric were thinking maybe this is going to be a really good game, and ended up not being. Ridgeline just absolutely shut out Brighton, a normally good football program, but nothing going there. Mountain Crest beating up on Logan 49-14, an old Region 11 rivalry, not a region game anymore. Logan managing to play at least one game against a Region 11 opponent. I'm hoping those don't go away, but I'm kind of afraid that Region 11 teams are not going to want to play Logan just because of how much, Ridgeline and Green Canyon and Skyview focus a lot on playing like 5A schools and like 4A contenders. That may not leave room for Logan down in 3A. But Mountain Crest taking care of business. And Mountain Crest, I think one of the teams to watch, I think Ridgeline. And then honestly, if you're making a power ranking right now of the high school teams, heck, the standings indicate that it's Ridgeline and Mountain Crest. But I think while Ridgeline probably the far and away favorite, I would look to Mountain Crest as your pretty clear number 2 right now. That is a team that can really make some noise, I think. We'll see how the Mountain Crest Ridgeline game goes. I think is this weekend. That's going to be a pretty big game. We'll see if the Mustangs can stand up to the Riverhawks, who are basically trying to run away with it in 4A. But we talked about one exciting game, Skyview against Spanish Fork, which you could hear on the Fan this last Friday, where they had an exciting one where Spanish Fork, they needed a field goal to tie. A touchdown would give them the lead in the final minute of the game. And they end up throwing an interception, which ended up being the Old Grist Mill bread and butter play of the game, which we announced the winner of that last hour. But another game, Green Canyon against Pleasant Grove. This is a game that Green Canyon led. They led most of the game. And then you had a lot happening at the end of the game with Pleasant Grove, trying to score to tie the game. And then a lot of crazy stuff happened at the end.
Insane. I am beside myself with that touchdown call. Here's the snap, hold, kick. Blocked! Oh! Green Canyon blocked it! Bryson Pabst! A pleasant night in Pleasant Grove.
Oh, man, Stockton. And there's flags flying on the play.
They'll take the celebration flag 10 times out of 10.
That is insane.
Give him the 15 yards and the win.
That is insane, Stockton. Green Canyon coming up big and blocking the extra point attempt.
Yeah, so Pleasant Grove, and I'll explain why Stockton was beside himself, and that is because with 40 seconds to go in this game, the Vikings got a touchdown on a 6-yard pass. Rocky Wilcox throwing the pass and getting the touchdown, getting the reception for the touchdown. And the broadcast, Stockton did not believe that it was a touchdown, did not believe that it should have been called a touchdown. Again, with 40 seconds to go, made it 13-12. Green Canyon still had the lead pending the PAT. And you heard what it sounded like over on 100 Light FM with Stockton on the call. It's just an insane, you can just see the turn in emotions for that, where Green Canyon goes from, crap, we got to win this one in overtime. We gave up a last second, touchdown to tie the game. And then suddenly, nope. The game was won. Kind of shades of, if you remember Utah State doing that to UConn. Thought they gave up a last second touchdown to tie the game, and then a blocked PAT saved the Aggies from having to win a game in overtime. So there you go. That's a quick recap of what went on in high school between these teams. Do a quick look at the standings real quick. Wanted to get that. I don't have them pulled up for Region 11. Where, as I mentioned, Ridgeline and Mountain Crest both at 3-0 in non-region play. Stansbury also coming in very strong as well. Not quite the point differential that Mountain Crest or Ridgeline have, but still 3-0. Then you've got some teams that have faced tough non-region schedules, but both getting a win in their final non-region game, at least before region. I don't know if they play another non-region game during the middle of region play itself. But Green Canyon, Skyview, both at 1-2. I think those will be strong teams. They're going to put up strong performances, I think, against the top teams in region, but struggling against tough opponents these first 3 weeks. But again, I think it's super crucial that Green Canyon and Skyview got those wins in the final week. Just because, you can try and build up your confidence by, propping up the strength of your opponent, but you want to actually get the win by the end. And so I think that's absolutely massive for Skyview and Green Canyon. You do have some teams that are, again, struggling a bit. Bear River and Tooele, they're both sitting at 1 and 2, but have had a bit more of a rough go at it. Not as strong of a strength of schedule. In a lot of cases, worse point differential. And there's Deseret Peak, who have been outscored 160-9 in an 0-3 start. So there's some work to be done there for Deseret Peak. So that's a quick look at high school football. We're going to go ahead and take we're going to take a early break here because I want to get back to Utah State football. We'll transition through a break, talk a little bit about this Utah State run game, Miles Davis, his potential impact, how good of a running back can he be? I thought Javen Jacobs was going to be the man, and it turns out everything I said about Javen Jacobs almost applies as much, if not more, to Miles Davis. But we'll talk about that more coming up next here on the Full Court Press here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Hi, this is Brooke Stevenson.
Ty Smith.
And David Castor with Adams Wealth Advisors. We're truly honored to be named Best of Northern Utah Gold winner for the best financial planner. This community means everything to us, and we're grateful for every customer who made this possible. Thank you for your trust.
Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com.
Have you thought about your furnace lately? Of course not. It's hot outside. Now's a great time to start thinking about replacing it or having it serviced for fall and winter. Advanced Heating and Air will help you get some of the industry's best rebates on a new high-efficient York furnace installed in your home. Or one of Advanced Heating and Air's service professionals can service your furnace for the upcoming winter season. Call today, 752-7272, or schedule a free estimate at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
Life is hard, so making sure you find that perfect woman is important. You need someone that will be by your side through the good and the bad. Once you have found her, show her that she is special with a beautiful diamond ring from Jerix. Yes, it is all about the romance. At Jerix, you won't find a more intimate setting. Where you purchase the ring might not be as important as who you choose to marry, but it's pretty close.
Jerix Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jerix.
Our veterans risked it all to protect our freedom. One of the best ways to say thank you is to volunteer to support them. At a time in history where kindness is a virtue, volunteering at a therapy bag event, teaching a craft class, or simply helping veterans at a hospital means a lot. For over 47 years, Help Heal Veterans, a not-for-profit organization, with the support of citizens like you, has created, manufactured, and distributed therapeutic art and crafts projects for our veterans and military at no charge to them. As a national veteran service organization, Help Heal Veterans supports VA hospitals, patients at home, and our active military. Together, Help Heal Veterans and volunteers like you have delivered over 32 million therapy kits to injured and recovering veterans. To volunteer or learn more, visit healvets.org. That's healvets.org.
What makes essential workers essential?
We keep where you work and live clean and safe.
We harvest fresh produce for your families to eat.
We help you heal when you're sick. Essential workers help our nation run. You're in every corner of our country and come from all over the globe. I'm Marty Walsh. The Wage and Hour Division at the Department of Labor helps ensure you receive the essential protections you deserve. Visit our website or call 866-4US-WAGE.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Labor.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. Stop texts. StopRex.org.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker hanging out all by my lonesome for now. Eric Franson, he's off to speak at or talk to a couple players at Utah State's football practice. Likely we'll have already talked to them unless they delayed the end of practice. but I hope he was going to talk to Courage Ugo, one of the starting corners, and then Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Week, Tanner Rinker. Kicked a couple of field goals, including a 49-yarder, and also had a couple PATs for the Aggies. But yeah, looking at the Aggies and their game, again, we did a lot of recap in the first hour. Most of mine and Eric's thoughts are going to be contained in that, but there are a couple of things I wanted to look at as far as some smaller points, starting with Utah State's run game. And I'll start with, we're going to actually mainly focus on some quotes from Jake Eichhorn, the left tackle for the Aggies. And just kind of the run game that the Aggies had, because it was good, for parts of the game. You had the 58-yard run with Miles Davis, but that ends up accounting for really most of his rushing yards. Outside of that, he ran the ball 11 times and 11 times for 30 yards, I think is what it would have been. 88 minus 50, yeah, it's 30. So 11 carries for 30 yards, which is not good, to be perfectly blunt. And, even with Miles Davis averaging 7.3 yards per carry, most of that carried by the 58-yard run, the Aggies averaged 3.8 yards per rush. Now, sacks are in there as well, along with 2 kneel downs. So if you adjust out those, and so if you adjust out both because you have 6 sacks, and that took away actually a lot of Bryson Barnes's rush yards, and you also adjust out the kneel downs. Even if you take out the 58-yard run, I think the Aggies still end up north of 4 yards per carry. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I forgot to write it down on my notes here. But I think Utah State's run game can be better. And I actually asked Eichhorn about this in Monday's press conference about whether or not whether or not Utah State can be a good run team, whether or not they can have an elite run game. Here was his thoughts on that.
I think we could be a fantastic run team. I think we run block well, which is the start of it all. But our backs, our quarterback, we're deep at running back. So really, it's as far as we want to take it, and I have a feeling we can do a lot with it.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with him. I think they can be better. They should be better, and they're going to have a bit of an upgrade at offensive line. They're going to bring back Tavo Motuapuaka, but they also just need to play better. I don't think they blocked particularly well for a lot of the run game. There were some plays where they opened up some big holes, like the Miles Davis one. They had good run blocking there. Guys set up the run game. And I think they had some stretch runs where they were going between the guard and the tackle, or kind of setting up, kind of an outside run, although still kind of going inside the tackle or like a pulling guard. And some of those where they were stretching a little bit, like when they just try to run it up the gut, run it up the A gap, it did not go particularly well. And maybe some of that's where they were starting some new guys on the interior offensive line, some guys who hadn't played as much. And maybe that's where it came from. But they need to improve the run game. But as Eichhorn said, they've got some depth at running back. They've got a guy like Javen Jacobs. They got a guy like Miles Davis. And Eichhorn was asked about Miles Davis and his thoughts. They're actually former teammates from a different school, and teammates once again on Utah State.
So Miles I've been playing with for 3 years now. We played 2 years at BYU together, and this is our 3rd year together. Fantastic guy, heart of gold, workhorse, right? So when I watch his success, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. He is he encompasses what this program is in terms of work ethic, in terms of he's going to run through your face if you're going to tackle him, and he's a home run hitter if he wants to be. So it's awesome.
Yeah. So Miles Davis looks like he's going to be the number 1 back, and I know I was putting my money on Javen Jacobs, but I think Miles Davis, what I saw from him, he's a good back. I don't know if he's an elite running back, but he has good versatility where he's got good hands out of the backfield. He can line up as a receiver, catch passes out of the backfield. He can hit the hole pretty well in the run game. He's got decent breakaway speed. I mean, he broke off the explosive run 58 yards. And so you've got that potential. But I think the run blocking was honestly the weak link. I think Miles Davis did pretty well, but I think by the end, the offensive line needs to pick things up. They need to be better. There are a lot of people who were hoping this offensive line would be better, and I was a little pessimistic saying I think they can be as good as they were last year. Although so far, I don't think they are. And they need to play better. 7994. Saying this is just my opinion and doesn't matter now, but I was pretty confident that Miles stepped out of bounds on the TD and should have been called back. Regardless, I was not impressed with the run blocking. The running back sees holes if one exists. Or consistency. As far as that 50-yard run, I'm almost certain that he stepped out of bounds. But it's one of those, is there enough evidence to overturn it? And the referees didn't see the smoking gun of his heel on his heel or the outside of his foot on the line, even though I think it was mostly there. But it was one of those, they couldn't see the specific 100% proof that he stepped out of bounds. There was reasonable doubt, I guess. But to be honest, I call out referees for plays where it's like, you can tell. You may not have the 100% proof, but just have some balls and make the call that actually happened. And that's one of those. And it would have gone against Utah State. I know that, but it's like, just because, and I don't think the referees are taught to do this, but they should do this, where it's like, look, if you know, based on what you're watching, that something happened, even if you're not 100% sure, it's that old thing like ask 100 guys in a bar. Like, you can tell he stepped out of bounds and it should have been called back. But that's just the way it is. Sometimes referees make bad calls, even on reviews. You'd think that like when you actually get to watch something on video, that a referee will actually get it right. But I've now seen like 2 or 3 in just this last year in soccer and in football where replay review shows something blatantly obvious and the referees still don't call it because, I don't know, ego or something. 9315 saying, I did see a film review that you could see he did not run out of bounds, from Hans Olsen. Again, I think I might have watched the video, but I watched it with sound off. But it's like, I remain convinced that he stepped out. The thing is that you can't say he definitively did. But honestly, I think the outside of his foot, like, because the thing is, you zoom on his heel, and it's like his heel isn't down, but the outside of his foot, like that outside curve of your foot, that hit out of bounds. You can see it. You can see it on film. It's there. He stepped out of bounds. His heel didn't, but the outside of his foot did. The only thing that would make sense is that like the broadcast angle maybe just didn't show it. And there was a referee who was staring right up the sideline. And maybe he saw the green between Miles Davis's foot and the sideline. Maybe it was there. But I was pretty certain that he was out of bounds. And so was pretty much everybody else. But that's something that went in favor of Utah State. If you ever say Utah State doesn't get the calls or the reviews, they do. And over the last few years, there have been plenty of examples in football and in basketball of the Aggies getting a favorable call. So don't ever say that the Aggies don't get the call, because they do plenty of times. Another thing I wanted to dive into, because I don't think we spent a ton of time on this, but Anthony Garcia playing wide receiver. That was one of the surprises that Bronco Mendenhall had in store. I think a lot of it had to do with injuries to other players and just the wide receiver room in general. But their quarterback and, their backup quarterback, Anthony Garcia, was playing wide receiver and caught, several passes. He caught, what was his final tally? 3 passes for 51 yards. That drive in the second half where they scored a touchdown, he had a long catch. I think 33 yards, where he caught a pass and set the Aggies up for what would eventually be a touchdown. Here's Bronco Mendenhall's thoughts on Garcia, the quarterback, playing wide receiver.
Yeah, Anthony did a really nice job. We've had some injuries at receiver, Anthony's a really good athlete. That doesn't mean that he'll exclusively play receiver. We like him at quarterback also. However, in the meantime, and this philosophy really goes all the way back to Taysom Hill at BYU. While he was our quarterback, if there would have been another viable option at quarterback that where it was close, we certainly would have used Taysom elsewhere. The Saints are currently, well, he's played about every position for them. At the University of Virginia, we loved having our backup quarterbacks while they were competing and while they were the understudy. We loved them to participate at other positions. And so it's just philosophically, it's way more fun to play than watch. And I think you can actually learn to play the position of quarterback while playing another position. And I think you're more integrated in the offense. So yeah, AG is just a great candidate for that for us.
Yeah, and Garcia, he's got the athleticism to play. I think his hands, like you can tell when you go watch those catches, like he doesn't have the softest of hands for catching a pass. That's something that I think he's going to have to work on. I mentioned a drop on third down. I think that was him, if I remember correctly. And I think there's some shiftiness and run after the catch ability that I think he's going to have to work on. So he's not a perfect candidate, and I wouldn't be comparing him to, like, you look at Nick Nash or whatnot, where he had a super successful career after transitioning to wide receiver. There's some work for Anthony Garcia, and I almost get the impression that transition to wide receiver was pretty late because he doesn't quite look as sharp as you'd want a slot receiver to look. Hopefully we'll see more good things from him in the future, though, but he certainly is an interesting player to be looking at for, with that transition from quarterback to wide receiver. It's a transition we've seen made before. Nick Nash did it. I remember my New England Patriots drafted Julian Edelman. He went from quarterback to playing wide receiver and was a heck of a receiver for the Patriots for quite a while, especially in the playoffs. But that was another interesting aspect for the Aggies. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation, talk about the Aggies, maybe also touch on Eurobasket as well. Some former Aggies and current Jazzmen playing in Eurobasket. We'll have all that coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Express Tire, tires for less.
Safety and comfort on the road are Express Tire's top priority. As a Point S team member, count on peace of mind with an inclusive warranty that includes nationwide protection. Any brand, any size, better pricing. No appointment necessary on the highway at 3200 North Main.
Express Tire, tires for less.
Hi, it's Emily, and here at Serenoni, we believe everyone deserves the perfect blanket. That's why we offer a wide variety of sizes and fabrics, from our softest minky to cozy lush, breathable bamboni to textured waffle. So you can find the perfect fit for babies, teens, grandparents, and everyone in between. Established in 2006 right here in Logan, come visit us and find the perfect blanket at our store on 10th West next to iFit. Serenoni, wrapped in comfort, gifted with love.
Addiction is something in this day and age I think all of us have been touched by in some form or way. For me, 14 years ago, I lost my father to an opioid overdose. Addiction is something that whether you're struggling with it personally or you're watching someone you love struggle with it, it can feel like there's no hope. If you've lost hope or you're scared for someone that you love and you don't see hope on their path, call Renaissance Ranch today. You can learn more at renaissanceranch.net. They have a location right here in Logan.
Vicky, how you doing? How's the knee?
It's coming along, doctor, but still some soreness.
Well, let's see. This soon after surgery, some pain is pretty normal.
I was hoping to get more painkillers. The first round worked great.
We're being very careful with those now. Prescription painkillers are opioids, same as heroin. It's easy to start taking them, not so easy to stop.
Last year in America, an average of 40 people died from opioid abuse every day. Long-term addiction has become America's newest health epidemic.
So no pills?
Vicky, you're doing great. So let's try these anti-inflammatories, plus your physical therapy. If the soreness doesn't continue to get better, give me a call.
For opioids, the smaller the dose prescribed and taken, the better. Because even a few prescription painkillers can sometimes go a long, wrong way. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the Orthopedic Trauma Association. Visit orthoinfo.org/prescription safety.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. I play pickup basketball on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do a group chat where everyone says whether or not they're going to be able to play. One guy texted or message in and said he wants me to confirm over the air that I'm coming, and the answer is yes. I'll be at pickup ball on Wednesday, tomorrow morning. So bright and early. There's also a video now in this group chat of one of the guys took video of us the last time we played, and so there's video of me online on the internet of me playing basketball, and I have to say it did not look pretty. I do not look good playing basketball. I'm mostly just walking around because I'm lazy and out of shape, but I like to play basketball, so it's fun to do. But speaking of basketball, we had over the weekend a lot of games. Not going to get to every single game from Eurobasket, but just focusing on the ones involving former Aggies or current Jazzmen, again, as many as I can remember kind of off the top of my head. Just looking at games from today and yesterday for the most part. With Poland, I know we've kind of been monitoring Szymon Zapala, but he's not been playing for Poland in Eurobasket. The games I've looked at so far, he's not played. Lauri Markkanen for Finland, they lost to Lithuania yesterday. He had 19 points in 22 minutes, also 11 rebounds and 6 assists, but they could not get the win over a solid Lithuania team. Great Britain struggling against a very good German team, a team that's got Dennis Schroeder, Franz Wagner, Isaac Bonga, guys who in or formerly in the NBA. A lot of good players. Daniel Theis, just a lot of good players on Germany. But a couple of former Aggies, Dan Atkin, he had 2.6 rebounds for Great Britain. Couldn't quite get things going there against Germany. Portugal, who's had some up and down showings and some up and down performances from two former Aggies on Portugal, Diogo Brito and Demias Queta. Brito held scoreless, went 0 for 4 from the field, only one rebound. That was his only one rebound and one steal. But Demias Queta, he had 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 block in his 18 minutes. I think I said Lauri Markkanen played 22 minutes. I was looking at the wrong stat line. He played 31 minutes. I was looking at the wrong column there for his minutes played. And then another current Jazzman, Jusuf Nurkic, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, as Bosnia and Herzegovina defeated Greece. Not sure, was Giannis playing? No, Giannis, two of his brothers were playing for Greece, but Giannis not suiting up for Greece in Eurobasket. So that's a bit of a quick summary there of Eurobasket, some former Aggies participating there, current Jazzmen. I think for Nurkic, he's an interesting player, mostly because I'm not sure how he's supposed to fit. He's one of the veterans that I don't think the Jazz are going to trade. I don't think so. Maybe they try and send him, based on how well he's doing in Eurobasket. Maybe somebody decides to trade a second round pick. The Jazz aren't going to get anything valuable for him. He's a veteran who's had, in his prime, was probably a top 10 starting center in the league. This is a guy who could put up a double-double, kind of an underrated passer, and, decent scorer in the post. He wasn't putting up volume numbers, but he could get a board, get a bucket, when he absolutely had to, and then, pass it pretty well. But now he's been really injury prone. He's kind of been languishing either on the bench or on bad teams. He's been traded about, a lot of excitement whenever he arrives, but a lot of teams have ultimately not used him, because I think he's been on like the Suns and a couple of these other teams where like he was supposed to kind of be like a team needed a center, and so they went and got Yusuf Nurkic, and then it turned out he wasn't the answer because he was either injured or just not playing at his best, not playing at like his peak. So I think figuring out what they've got with Nurkic, like, are they going to be able to revitalize his value to the point where they won't have to like give up a trade asset, give up a pick just to get rid of him? But like, how are they going to revive his value without like biting into some of Walker Kessler's minutes? Walker Kessler and Yusuf Nurkic are their centers, and they can't really play any other position. And there's 48 minutes. How are you going to revitalize Nurkic's minutes without taking away from some of Walker Kessler? Like, are you going to play Kessler like 28, 30 minutes? Like, that's what I'd like him to play. But then suddenly that's 17 minutes for Nurkic, less if you're going to play a third string center or have any center minutes from guys like Taylor Hendricks or Lauri Markkanen. If you're going to play kind of a forward heavy lineup where you have like Hendricks and Markkanen and maybe Ace Bailey out there on the floor at the same time. So I'm curious what on earth they're going to do with Yusuf Nurkic. Just because I don't feel like he fits into the rotation. I'm not sure George Niang fits into the rotation either, because he plays a position where Markkanen is there, Ace Bailey is there, Taylor Hendricks is there. Like, what position, what minutes in the rotation is Niang going to get? So it's like they've got a couple of veterans on the team where it's like, it's fine to have veterans on the team, so long as they're at positions where they're not taking away minutes from young players. And if you've only got like one young player at a position, like if it was just Hendricks at power forward, if it was just Hendricks and Markkanen, it's like, okay, you need more forwards, you need more guys that can play. But when it's Hendricks and Bailey and Markkanen, among others as well, it's like there comes a time where it's like there's just not as much room, and a lot of those guys, it's hard for them to play small forward. Like Markkanen can kind of play small forward, and Bailey might be best as a small forward, but Niang can't play small forward. Hendricks probably shouldn't be playing small forward. He's closer to a center than he is a small forward. But Markkanen is like slightly out of position as a small forward. Are you going to play most of his minutes at the 3? And then what's Ace Bailey do? Is he going to play shooting guard? I don't know. They've got some veterans at awkward position groups where it just makes things a little trickier, I think, for them. But I think they'll figure it out. And it's not like guys stay healthy the entire year, so you need more guys who can fill in if Markkanen's injured or any one of the young guys has to get held out, because they held him out of summer league, so of course they're going to probably hold him out for like half the season. Because you gotta do that load management. But anyway, we'll be looking forward to the Jazz season. You'll be able to hear those games here on the Fan as we get a glimpse into some of these current Jazz players, what they might be able to pull off this season as they play in Eurobasket. That's going to do it for us today. We'll continue talking Utah State football, begin previewing their matchup with Texas A&M, 19th ranked Texas A&M, the other Aggies down in Texas. We'll have that next. Make sure to tune in tomorrow.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. KLGN Logan, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.